Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move the following motion, that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 232.7 relating to presentation of the budget policy statement, that this House resolves to extend the period for the consideration of the budget policy statement 2024 by a period of 14 days.
Order, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro. That what you are trying to do will be on the order paper for tomorrow. I gave you an opportunity to give a progress report on the time-bound PBS hearings that are going on.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for that guidance. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you for this chance because it is very important that I bring to the attention of this House that one of our critical roles in this House is budget making. And Honorable Speaker, it is usually a lengthy process. Possibly most of us even before actually thought that this is a process that starts in June. But Honorable Speaker, just to bring it in a very short, in very few minutes to members, the process starts actually the previous calendar year. For example, in this financial year, the process of budget making started last year in November when we had a public participation and formation of the sector working groups. Honorable Speaker, after the sector working groups, then we are now in the process of setting the ceilings for all the departments and especially the sectors that constitutes our economy, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, just to bring up to the members, to bring members to speed, currently as we talk, as we meet here today, we have already started the process of departmental committees meeting their various accounting officers, Honorable Speaker. And that is the reason why even the PSs who are previously engaged in other engagements, and especially the PG in Naivasha, have been recalled to Nairobi, Honorable Speaker, so that they continue meeting the departmental committees. Honorable Speaker, the process of consideration of BPS is time-bound and the time is statutory. And Honorable Speaker, there cannot be a lot of negotiations around that time. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, mine is just to thank all the departmental chairs and to request them that we kindly stick to the dates that have been provided, that we meet our principal secretaries today, those who are meeting them today, others are meeting them tomorrow. But Honorable Speaker, I want to make a humble request that we conclude the hearings from the principal secretaries by this Saturday, so that, Honorable Speaker, we are able to be in time and we are able to process the budget policy statement within the statutory timeline. Honorable Speaker, I thank you. I thank all the members who belong to other departmental committees, and I request them kindly that we stick to the timelines of today, tomorrow, and up to Friday that have been provided for meeting the principal secretaries, so that we keep ourselves within the statutory time. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Ndindi. We can go to order number 8. Yes, Honorable Nyikal.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we go to order number 8, Mr. Speaker, I rise to seek your guidance on the issue of tabling and contents
of the issue of.
Mr. Speaker, as we go to order number 8, I rise to seek your guidance on the issue of tabling and contents of committee reports in regard to bills. Mr. Speaker, although what I'm saying arises from my observation on the bill we are discussing now, I think it's an issue that we should address as a House. To begin with, Mr. Speaker, we tend to get reports very late, and so that often members actually do not get time to benefit from what the committees have worked on and even the stakeholder issues they have raised. And two, Mr. Speaker, most of the reports that I've seen that relate to bills normally they are done in a very clear fashion. You have the stakeholder meetings, they are reported as verbatim as there, but then you will have a schedule of observations, a schedule of recommendations, and in the case of a bill, Mr. Speaker, a schedule of amendments. It therefore makes it very easy for members not to go through all the details of the stakeholder discussions, but to focus on this and make quick decisions. That was missing in this particular report, and Mr. Speaker, you have to go through all the reports of the discussions, and then you get observations on a particular group and the committee observations, and in the end, we did not get good clearance. Mr. Speaker, why I raised those two issues of the time of tabling and the content, Mr. Speaker, when you have very important bills such as this one, it is the committee work that guides what the members' discussion. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we may have to even go into our rules and procedure rules in the House and actually go back and say we cannot have bills discussed before the committee gives a report and give a time, for example, 2 days before the discussion starts. And maybe in exceptional cases, with the leave of the Speaker, we can do that. Mr. Speaker, I thought I would raise this because I'm finding that the use of the committee reports is actually being eroded. And therefore, I think that is a very, very important bit of legislation at the committee stage, Mr. Speaker. I thought I would raise this. I've noted it in this, but I've noted it before. But this is a particularly important bill that should have gotten all the attention that we required and all the guidance from the committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Nyikal, I think you are suffering from being absent in the House. The matter you are raising was very ably raised by your chief whip when this bill was being called for second reading. And his complaint was that the report had been just laid and members needed time to read through. By now, I'm sure members have read the report. Yes. What is even more important is that the report and the content is more useful at the committee of the whole. That's when you can make changes to the bill arising out of the committee recommendations. That's when you can file your amendments if you wish. But I get your point, and the clerk will address some of the issues you have raised. Let's call order number 8. Yes, Honorable Junet. On the same issue?
Mr. Speaker, on budget policy statement.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, the budget policy statement issue has been explained here by the chairman. I want the majority leader to give me an ear, Mr. Speaker, through you. Mr. Speaker, the budget policy statement is one of the most important documents in the budget making process in this House, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, it was supposed to be laid here by 15th of February, Mr. Speaker, and we are already late by 5 days. Today is 20th, Mr. Speaker. It was laid, but we have lost time. Mr. Speaker, I'm of the view that going forward, it is either we change our standing orders so that it can be committed to relevant committees when we are away, or we change the Public Finance Management Act so that the timelines can be increased from 14 days to 21 days, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is the document that informs how our budget will look like in the next financial year, Mr. Speaker. And I know members are asking, are we implementing it? But this is the framework. This is the document that every member must take very, very serious, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge through the majority leader that bring an amendment to the Finance Act so that we can increase the timeline. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Junet, again, what you are complaining about has actually been cured. The standing order says it has to be laid by 15th. It was laid on the 15th. And it has to take 14 days Ndindi Nyoro has asked that we extend by 7 days to 21 days. So your worries are taken care of. Next order.
Order number 8, the Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2023, second reading.
Honorable Mbandi, you're on the floor, but there's a point of order by Chepkonga. Hold your horses. Order.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Just
Speaker.
hold it.
I raise pursuant to Standing Order number 95 as read together with Standing Order number 83. But, Mr. Speaker, before I raise that point of order, I thought my very good friend, the Honorable Musa Sirma, who is the chair of CDF, had very important information to communicate to this House, particularly when the Honorable Stephen Mule was welcoming his students. We thought that the students will go back home knowing that CDF has been released.
Can you raise your point of order in relation to order number 8?
No, I was just trying to eliminate.
And Honorable Sirma, you don't have to stand up simply because your name was mentioned. Go ahead.
You want
No, Chepkonga.
Yes, go ahead.
Raise your point of order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Moses Sirma, take your seat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. He needs to take a cue to raise a point of order himself. Mr. Speaker, this matter has been ably canvassed in this House. And, Mr. Speaker, without anticipating debate in the next standing order, in the next debate, Mr. Speaker, which is extremely very important, it has exercised the minds of Kenyans.
What is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, my point of order, would I be in order in accordance with Standing Order number 95, as read together with 83, that the Speaker be called upon to reply, not the mover be called upon to reply, because this matter has already been spent, Mr. Speaker. In fact, when issues were discussed the last time, what I wanted to discuss, Mr. Speaker, was also being discussed by another member. So I thought I became redundant. So I thought it is important that the mover be called upon to reply so that we can move to the most important debate, which is disturbing Kenyans, and we need to sort out this before Baba is appointed as the chairman of AU. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Before I exercise that discretion, I'll allow Honorable Mbandi, who is a ranking member of this House, to exhaust his time.
Mr.
You have
Speaker,
a point of order, Honorable Otienda Molo? Order, Musa
Mr.
Sirma.
Speaker, the Honorable Chepkonga is a ranking member and is my friend, and in recent times we've been co-chairing a very important subcommittee on CDF. But Mr. Speaker, when he stands on Standing Order 95 to persuade you to exercise your discretion, knowing that on the day the debate on this matter started, I and him were busy representing this House in another important matter, and I, among others, have not had the opportunity to say a bit. He is not only misleading, he is being unfair to the rest of us. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge you not to accept that invite. This is a very important matter, Mr. Speaker, as you know, that has invited interpretation by the court. As a House, we got it wrong the first time. It is important to get it right the second time without rushing. I submit, Mr. Speaker, and I was the first in this House this afternoon waiting to speak to this matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Mbadi.
yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think I had 3 minutes left to make my contribution. And Mr. Speaker, there is something that worries me with this bill. Looking at clause number 4, and a few members have spoken to it, in an effort for the government or the executive to beat, or rather to correct, what was said in court, they are creating a bigger problem to the people of Kenya. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at clause 4, where the levy is being levied or imposed, then it says that there is imposed a levy known as the Affordable Housing Levy, and that the levy shall be at the rate of 1.5% of the gross salary of an employee or the gross income of a person received or accrued which is not subject to the levy under paragraph A. Mr. Speaker, we are exposing Kenyans now, including even Mama Mboga in the streets, who are promised that this levy will only affect those who are salaried and who have a pay slip, to unnecessary harassment by Kenya Revenue Authority. Mr. Speaker, to impose this levy on people who don't have salary is going to be a nightmare. And what we are doing, in short, is to allow the Kenya Revenue Authority officers to now be snooping and harassing Kenyans, including even farmers, Mr. Speaker. Because what this particular provision means, in short, is that if you go to your farm, get your maize, and you sell it, you are supposed to be taxed, or a levy is supposed to be imposed on the produce that you get from your shamba. Gross of it, not even removing the cost of producing maize. This is punitive, and this is one of the worst legislations that can ever be passed in a house like this. Mr. Speaker, unless there is going to be an amendment to remove this or to make it implementable, Mr. Speaker, this particular provision should not be allowed to stand. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to go any further. I can see the leader of majorities gesturing, I don't know for what. But Mr. Speaker, I've just mentioned that.
Order, honorable members, order. Order, double N. Order. Is that Ngeleche or double N? The exuberance and loud conversations are disrupting even the speaker to hear what the member on the floor is saying.
Mr. Speaker, what I was saying was very important, so I may need to repeat it. Mr. Speaker, the provision under clause 4 is very, very, very dangerous. And I would urge that this matter is looked into, because now, Mr. Speaker, those farmers in the village who, after producing their crops, sell their produce, will be required to surrender 1.5% of the gross produce to this housing levy. Mr. Speaker, this is punitive. This is going to lead to unnecessary harassment of ordinary Kenyans by Kenya Revenue Authority. And I can see Leader of Majorities is laughing. He actually said when he was moving this motion that they are very happy because government is going to receive more money. But why should you be happy when the same hustlers are suffering, Mr. Speaker, just because you are getting more money to do things that are not so clear, like housing, providing houses to people who we don't even know. Mr. Speaker, this is something that needs to really be looked into and removed from this law, even though the judiciary mentioned about discrimination. There should be a better way, a more
Honorable members, I have been moved to call the mover to reply, but I'll give Honorable Otienda Amolo and one other member this side, then I call the mover to reply. Otienda Amolo? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, this issue has various facets, but the first, which is of note, is the aspect that it increases the tax burden on Kenyans by a good 3%. And while most people are already familiar with the 3%, what they are not familiar with is the penalty that is also prescribed, that if you do not remit that 3% within 30 days, there's an additional penalty of another 3%. So that in any 1 month, you are in danger of having to pay 6%, which can actually be recovered by court action. Secondly, and this bears repetition, it must be borne in mind that as national government is endeavoring to do all this, Schedule 4, Clause 18, and Schedule Part 1 and Part 2 makes it very clear that no matter how well-intentioned the government may be, housing still remains a county function, function. And the only thing given to national government is the policy. This bill is not prescribing policy, it's prescribing the way of doing it. That will remain unconstitutional no matter how you couch it. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, in terms of counties, this bill is very strange. It comes under the hand of the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, and it purports in the purposes that it has nothing to do with counties. And yet, first of all, in the very face of the bill, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the bill, clause 10(2)(c), clause 12(3)(b)(1), both of them actually expressly mention the county. Besides, in their rendering of explanation, we have been told that actually they are getting land that is right now held by the counties. You cannot get land from the counties and say the bill does not concern counties, by definition and by law. It means, by whatever formulation, the bill must also involve the Senate, and it must also involve discussion with the county governments. Mr. Speaker, the question of land is not clear. This bill proceeds as if these units will be built in the air. There is no attempt to talk about land acquisition at all. In fact, more importantly, under the Constitution, whether it's land held on behalf of the county or on behalf of the national government, it is only the National Land Commission that is authorized to allocate that land. The bill does not even recognize the National Land Commission, and I've seen the submission by the commission itself. It was persuading the committee to have provisions on the process of land acquisition. Otherwise, you'll end up putting public money in land that is not even owned by the public. Mr. Speaker, this bill, in a very serious manner, makes several aspects that are very unclear. First, in terms of ownership. It does not make it clear whether we are talking of affordable ownership of houses or affordable rental of houses. It is totally confused. And if you look at section 10 and 37 as read together, it's only talking about then paying a percentage of whatever, 10% actually, of whatever is deemed to be the worth of the unit. It doesn't say whether it's 10% represent the purchase price or the rental price. This bill again, Mr. Speaker, in trying to talk of administration, it becomes very confusing. In section 11, the money is supposed to be divided three ways. Part of it is divided to the National Housing Corporation, another part to the slum upgrading program, and the third part to the State Department responsible for housing in section 11. It then seeks to assume later in the bill that it is only the State Department and the board that is created that is administering the fund. The truth is, once you allocate land to the National Housing Corporation, to the slum upgrading fund, you have no means under the bill of then superintending it. It means that only 1/3 of the money allocated under this bill will be superintended by the board that is created. Mr. Speaker, in all fairness, the bill then does something very, very dangerous in section 2A. And Mr. Speaker, we all know that the collector of taxes is the Kenya Revenue Authority. But this section 2A then authorizes any other person appointed by the Cabinet Secretary for the time being responsible for National Treasury for the purposes of collection of funds under this Act. We are enabling an entity who is not even said to be a government entity to collect government taxes. We must be the only country that can do such a thing. And besides, you know that later on, 2% of the monies allocated are then allowed to be retained by this actor. Who is this person that we are giving the possibility of collecting monies that belong to Kenyans under this fund? Mr. Speaker, I wish to submit that however well-intentioned, this bill still requires a lot of proper analysis and engagement, not at the level of drafting, but at the idea level. It is still premature, it has not been well cooked, it is being rushed, it will end up being in problems. I so submit, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
I'll give Kimani. Then we can call the mover to reply.
Thank you, Mr.
You are giving the microphone to a member I have not called out.
Thank you.
Yes, Kimani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We appreciate the debate that you've held this afternoon and the views held by, among others, the Honorable Atendi Amolo. And tomorrow, during the Committee of the Whole House, the Joint Committees of Finance and National Planning and that of Housing, Public Works and Urban Development will be putting across several amendments so that we align the fears that members of this Honorable House has raised. But a few of those things that I would like to reply to is, one, the issue or the question of the ownership of land and the transfer of these houses, or where these houses are built on public land and how they are transferred from public land to private land. One of the amendments we'll be moving tomorrow is an amendment to the Lands Act, is a provision that all the transfer of land from public to private will have to follow the Land Act, Honorable Speaker. The issue about penalties in terms of the times when these levies are levied to the relevant authority, we will also be promoting an amendment so that they are in line with the Tax Procedures Act, so that the fines and the penalties that shall accrue as a result of late disbursement of these funds will follow the rest of the taxes as proposed by the as enshrined in the Tax Procedures Act. Honorable Speaker, one of the key amendments that we have done is we've created the fund. And now this fund, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and them trying to implement these affordable housing programs, the bill proposes to use existing structures of governance, including county governments, including the National Housing Corporation, including the State Department in charge of housing, and other private entities that could be involved in the issue of affordable housing. So the monies are collected as a levy by KRA, they're taken into the fund, and then it is a fund that disburses these monies to the respective agencies. The agencies will implement the housing programs, and once the houses are complete, they are going to be transferred to the fund. And now it is now the fund that is going to distribute these houses to Kenyans, Honorable Speaker. The issue about whether to buy or rent has also been addressed in the amendment that will be moving tomorrow, that now provides that this affordable housing will be available for whether you want to buy or rent, Honorable Speaker. The issue of the 10% deposit, again proposed as a bill, is one of the things that we propose to delete tomorrow during the Committee of the Whole House, because we listened to Kenyans and they said that 10% proposed deposit is too punitive and might not be affordable to the majority of hustlers that want to get involved in this program, Honorable Speaker. Lastly, there was a fear that these houses will be taken by the rich at the expense of the people that should benefit from this affordable housing. And therefore, we'll also be proposing to have one ID, one KRA PIN, one house, so that we do not have people taking advantage of this particular program and going to invest in them at the expense of the hustlers that are benefiting from this program, Honorable Speaker. We have also clearly defined what an affordable house, and most importantly, Honorable Speaker, one of the things that came out of the public hearings is a need for institutional housing. We have a majority of the civil servants who are majority of the contributors to this kitty, like the police, like the teachers, like KDF, like lecturers, like even student accommodation, that now we are proposing to include an additional amendment to have affordable housing, including institutional housing, so that our students, for example, Honorable Speaker, the Technical University of Nairobi has a population of almost 20,000 students, but the number of hostels they have as an institution is less than 500. And this means that we have had mushrooming of slums around universities. If you go to Kenyatta University, the students there live in KM. If you go to University of Nairobi, there is a slum around all our institutions of higher learning. And therefore, the bill will propose to have a particular provision and a particular percentage going to institutional housing, especially targeting our civil servants, our teachers, our police officers, and most importantly, our students, so that the students can live near where they go to school and they can have a conducive place to learn and to acquire knowledge without having to go through slums to be marked at night when going home, and the risk of them being, their hostels being, their rental houses being locked, and them even staying out of school, Honorable Speaker. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to support this bill, and again, tomorrow during the committee of the whole, the joint committees will be proposing an array of amendments to safeguard some of the things that our members, especially from the minority side, has raised. I beg to move, Honorable Speaker.
Order, honorable members. Order. Order, honorable members. I now put the question pursuant to the point of order raised by Honorable Chepkonga, that the mover be now called upon to reply. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? No. The ayes have it.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me in reply to first thank all the members who have contributed. Honorable Speaker, last Thursday when this debate began, just to dissuade that fear by the Honorable Tiende Amolo that this bill is being rushed, we were here up to 7 p.m. and very many members contributed. And I sat here pensively listening to all the contributions by the members. Honorable Speaker, I remember the Honorable Engineer Mwengi, who was asking, how will a person earning 20,000 shillings afford to save to buy a house of 2.5 million shillings? Honorable Speaker, the straight answer is in the bill. I'm certain the Honorable Engineer may not have read the bill. And at clause 2 of the bill on social housing, the bill is quite explicit that the social housing units will be houses for people, targeting people whose monthly income is below 20,000 shillings. The same questions I had the leader of minority asking, how will Mama Mboga, how will a boda rider afford to buy a house? It is these people who are being targeted with the social housing. The Honorable Tiende Omolo, who has just contributed this afternoon, is asking the same pertinent questions. Is this bill about affordable housing, ownership of housing, or is it about affordable rentals? And the straight answer again, it is about affordable ownership of houses. New home owners, millions of new home owners will be created out of this bill, Honorable Speaker, and not just rentals. And I know, Honorable Speaker, those who have been opposing this bill, a number of them are those who have vested interests in rental units in this country, who fear that affordable ownership of houses by Kenyans might in a way jeopardize their rental units. But I want to assure even landlords like myself, and Honorable Speaker, I am a landlord myself, just like many of us here, including the Honorable Junet. We are not threatened in any way by this bill. The housing gap in this country is so huge, Honorable Speaker, that we do not need to fear that anybody will be threatened.
Okello, what is out of order?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Majority Leader understands that all of us here in this House know how to read. And Honorable Speaker, firstly, it says the Affordable Housing Bill 2023. And if we go to
what is out of order?
The heading. Honorable Speaker, I want this clear. If we go to the heading, it talks about a framework for access to affordable housing. There is no indication of ownership here, Honorable Speaker. And that is the confusion that we are going through. Are we talking about affordable rentals, which could as well be part of this, or affordable ownership of a house? Honorable Speaker, ownership is not here.
Order, Honorable
unless we are going to make more amendments.
Order, Honorable Kello, you are debating. You are not raising a point of order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. You know, Honorable Speaker, reading English and interpretation of what is written in English are two different things. Honorable Speaker, moving on, the Honorable Oudo, in his submission, again was asking how will AJAABU brewers, or rather he asked that many of his many constituents who are AJAABU brewers and pose the question that what mechanism will be there to collect this money, and I think it's the same question that the Honorable Opio and I was asking, what mechanism will be there to collect this money as directed by the court? And Honorable Speaker, it is indeed true, as the Honorable Otiende Omolo has submitted, that it is the courts that said we are not levying this tax to a certain section of Kenyans. And therefore, in curing that problem that the court pointed out, then a provision was created for us to use the Tax Procedures Act, as has been clearly stipulated by the chair of the Finance Committee, to collect from every Kenyan who is earning an income. And Honorable Speaker, whether you are a farmer, whether you are a Chang'aa brewer, and maybe to Honorable Udo, it is brewers, not Chang'aa brewers, because Chang'aa brewing is an illegitimate trade that I don't know whether there is a way of collecting taxes from a legitimate trade. But for any person who is involved in legitimate earning of an income, they shall be obligated to pay this under the Tax Procedures Act. And Honorable Speaker, there are fears that, like the Honorable John Badis has said, that KRA will harass people. KRA is a tax collector, not an agent for harassing Kenyans. And they will collect the taxes that are due from Kenyans in the manner provided for in law. Finally, Honorable Speaker, and I think is also an issue that you addressed when I think Honorable Junet or somebody else objected to the beginning of the debate on the question that appears on the memorandum of objects and reasons for this bill. Honorable Speaker, you put it so well that the memorandum is a storyline. Is a storyline describing what the proposer of the bill thinks of his bill. And at the point we formulated this bill as a proposer, it was my thinking that it will not affect county governments because it was a money bill that was designed to collect taxes, Honorable Speaker. But I have since been informed and guided even by the Speaker when the two speakers consulted and agreed that this bill does concern counties. Honorable Speaker, I am certain if and when this House dispenses with this bill, it will certainly be on its way to the Senate, and I have been in consultations with the leader of majority in the Senate. They are indeed waiting for this bill in the Senate.
Order majority. Yes, Honorable Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, the majority leader raises a very interesting issue, which we need to investigate as a House on how bills are done and are published. Mr. Speaker, if a bill is styled to be a bill not concerning counties, and thereafter the proposer discovers that indeed it concerns counties, should this bill be printed afresh and published? Should it be debated in the manner in which it appears to be? This raises a legitimate... Mr. Speaker,
Order, I'll cut you there. The matter you are raising was actually raised here by your leader, the minority leader, and he prosecuted it very effectively, and the chair ruled on it. One, that the Speaker of the House and the Speaker of the Senate are satisfied and concur that this is a bill concerning counties. Two, that whatever is in the memorandum is something that will not find itself in the body of the law when you pass it. Three, that at committee stage you can amend anything including the memorandum to expunge any offending words that tend to indicate either impliedly or expressly that the bill does not concern counties, because it does. And it was all agreed by both sides that this bill concerns counties, and from here it will go to the Senate. So if you had been here when Wandai was contributing, you wouldn't have raised that point of order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was hoping, Honorable Speaker, you would tell the Honorable TJ, give him the same response you gave to the Honorable Nyikal, that he's also suffering from being absent from the House.
Yes.
Because that is a matter that was indeed canvassed, and you made a very reasoned ruling on the matter. And indeed, as I was indicating in conclusion, Honorable Speaker, this memorandum as the Speaker directed. If anybody desires to amend the memorandum or my storyline of what the bill is about, you are at liberty to amend it when this bill comes for third reading. With those very many remarks, Honorable Speaker, allow me, Honorable Speaker, maybe, Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, Article 38, Clause 38, Honorable Speaker, and the Honorable Engineer Mwengi also spoke to the issue of the contributions, voluntary savings. And to an extent, he confused the voluntary savings to voluntary contributions into the fund. And the voluntary savings referred to under Clause 38 refer to savings towards contributing a deposit. And is a deposit that the Honorable Chair of the Finance Committee has very ably stated that the provision that was there for a 10% deposit, and I remember when the units in Nakuru County were in Bondeni, Nakuru, were advertised, Kenyans raised that particular question as to whether how many Kenyans will be able to afford 100,000 shillings, and that is what the chairman of the Finance Committee has indicated that they have proposed in their committee report during third reading to remove the provision for a 10% deposit, so that Kenyans, even what we do, Honorable Speaker, when you are getting into a rental house, you are required to raise a deposit of 2 months deposit and one month rent, or 1 month's deposit and 2 months rent, and you pay an equivalent of your 3 months deposit as your deposit. Is probably something now with the removal of the 10% deposit that could be considered by the people who will be selling these houses under the fund. Honorable Speaker, with those very many remarks, let me conclude by saying that this bill is not just about a levy. This bill is not just about houses. As I submitted when moving, this bill is about provision of jobs for millions of our youth who are languishing back in our constituencies without jobs. And plead with all of you to vote for this bill. And voting for this bill, honorable members, you will be voting for jobs. I will wait to see, Honorable Speaker, how many of us here will vote against jobs for Kenyans, jobs for Kenyans, jobs for your constituencies. This bill is nothing other than about jobs, 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 jobs for your constituencies. Vote for jobs. Vote for employment. Vote for homeowners. Vote for wealth creation. Vote for a new Kenya. I submit and I reply, Honorable Speaker.
Order. Honorable members on both sides of the House, you are totally out of order for turning the floor of the House into a rally situation. Honorable members, I'll now put the question, which is that the Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2023, be now read a second time. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it. Take your seats. Take your seats, honorable members. Order. You have order, honorable members. Take your seats. You have the requisite number. Order. Order, honorable members. You have claimed a division. You have the requisite number. Before we ring the bell, allow me to acknowledge in the Speaker's gallery order the presence of Solian Girls High School from Eldama Ravine in Baringo. We can now ring the division bell for 5 minutes. We are on division, we can't. Order, honorable members. The division bell will be rung for 5 minutes.